Part 85. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 845. Bailey shook his head. No matter how powerful your individual martial arts is, you can't compete with the worst model of mecha. The strongest martial artist in the Home Star Federation is Master Cheng Xinjiao more than 200 years ago. It is said that he can cut off boulders with one palm and kill a rhinoceros with one punch. Elephant. The body is comparable to a second-level mutant radiation creature, but this is the limit that humans can reach by using various means. A second-level creature can be easily killed by only a second-level pilot piloting a mecha. And two level 2 mechas can kill level 3 creatures, and Master Cheng Xinjiao died at the claws of a level 3 mutant creature. What he said was clear, without any concealment and above board. Many students and Eagle Nest members around him heard it and showed their approval. There was a burst of discussion outside the stadium. Apparently Bailey's topic also aroused everyone's interest in the degree of coordination and balance between mecha and physical exercise. Bailey looked at Garen sincerely. I would like to advise you that the power of a pilot lies in the mecha. High-level mechas can destroy the world, and only high-level pilots can meet the driving requirements. With each higher level, the improvement of the mecha is far beyond the human body. Not to mention that if the human body does not exercise for a day, the body will stagnate and degenerate. Think about it carefully. He turned around, jumped off the stage, put on his clothes, and walked out of the arena with his companions. Garen didn't say much from beginning to end, just listened quietly. He knew that the other party had good intentions. The students from the Eagle Nest were all practicing eagle claws. In the eyes of outsiders, they were all naturally in the same group. The other party obviously wanted him to figure this problem out. But how do they know that his level of consciousness is actually raised entirely by the secret martial arts of life? If he gives up the secret martial arts and gives up on his own development, his consciousness will directly stagnate. If he wants to make progress, he may need decades of time. Unless you can compete with the mecha, no matter how powerful the human body is, it will be futile. When Garen jumped off the field, Sophia advised. Angie Tylan nodded in agreement. Garen was silent for a moment. Can you let me see the real gap? The two looked at each other. I'll do it, Sophia nodded. Her performance on the field had already shown that Nono Siwa was a top talent comparable to elite students. He could reach the third level of consciousness in just his sophomore year, which was enough for her to actively invest. Follow me. Half an hour later, the three of them came to the simulated battle area of the Eagle's Nest, surrounded by a crowd of watching Eagle's Nest students. Simulated battle net cabins are arranged side by side in this area, with every two facing each other. It is obviously a dedicated place for simulated decisive battles. This is the place where decisive battles are usually held. Come on up. The simulated battle does not cost money and is the safest way, Sophia introduced, being the first to lie down and enter the cockpit on the right. Garen also entered the cockpit on the left-hand side. Close your eyes and place the nerve connection device firmly on your head. Everything was pitch black before his eyes, and a line of white text suddenly flashed out. Welcome to the Eagle's Nest Arena. Please type in your name. Nono Siwa, Garen replied in a low voice. Name confirmed, ranking unknown, please wait, the scene is being initialized. The text changed and then disappeared suddenly. After a while, Galen's eyes suddenly lit up. After his eyes got used to the somewhat dazzling light, he saw the scene around him. He is standing in a huge and wide silver-white hall. The floor is smooth and flat, all made of alloy. On the right is a black wall with a huge black sword and shield metal logo. On the left is an equally huge glass floor-to-ceiling window, which can see outside. There was a dim yellow sky, and black airship battleships flying slowly in the sky. The virtual scene is completed and the mecha selection begins. A mechanical and electronic sound sounded from all around. Garen moved his body and saw a square light screen flashing in front of him, with miniatures of mechas floating on it. There are all mechas from level 1 to level 5, but because of his level of consciousness, he can only choose mechas of level 3 and below. Pressing directly to the level 3 mecha screen, Garen began to examine it carefully. Soon a mecha that suited his wishes appeared in front of him. Wings of Freedom, level 3 mecha enhanced type, the Erlen Army's standard mecha, with level 3 firepower, level 3 speed, level 2 defense, and level 2 power special device skill, Heart of Freedom, maximum speed burst in a short time, speed increase by 1 level after use, the power decreases by 1 level for 10 seconds. This mecha is covered in dark blue, and looks like a slender knight holding a dragon spear. It wears a sharp hat, with only the nose and mouth below the eyes exposed. Gives people a mysterious feeling. Click on the Wings of Freedom pattern. In an instant, Garen felt the surroundings of his body change. In just a blink of an eye, he was already sitting inside a dark blue cabin. In front of him is a circular light screen, which can display the surrounding environment outside. There are many faint lines and indicator lights on the surrounding dark blue walls that connect the cabins. Have you chosen? Wings of Freedom, a dark red mecha suddenly appeared on the opposite field. It was also in human form, but she held 2 red cross swords in her hands, which were lightly overlapped and crossed, making a crisp sound. There was nothing surprising about that mecha, it just gave people a very ordinary and sparse feeling. Mine is the lowest level 5 mecha, Redfish Sophia introduced. I deliberately chose the lowest level of mecha, level 5, just to show you how terrifying the difference in consciousness levels will be in mecha control. Garen did not answer, but quietly controlled the mecha to move its limbs. Start, Redfish raised a cross sword. Okay, Garen responded. Be careful, what I'm going to use next is the most common sprint cross-slash of the Redfish mecha. This is a basic technique that any 5th level pilot will use. Sophia pointed out her next move responsibly. Understood, senior sister, just come. Garen arched his body, and his 3rd level consciousness allowed him to control the mecha freely without Yuia's help. He was slightly surprised by the flexibility, speed, reaction, and strength of the level 3 mecha. This level 3 mecha was equivalent to the superposition of 2 level 1 mechas. This is not 1 + 1 = 2. As a result, in actual combat, this level can achieve a strong record of 1 against 10. Be careful, Sophia warned again. Charge cross-slash. The legs of the Redfish mecha suddenly lit up with red light, and the 2 swords were placed beside the body, forming a figure 8. Coax. The huge engine started up and exploded, and the Redfish mecha exploded at an instant speed that actually spanned hundreds of meters. The 2 swords swung forward and shot a red cross star in the air. This speed has far surpassed that of the 3rd level mecha. It spanned 100 meters in an instant and sprinted in front of the Garen mecha. Such a terrifying explosive power left Garen with no time to react when operating the mecha with his consciousness. He could only barely lift the spear and stand it upright. Forward, trying to pierce the opponent with the inertia of the opponent's sprint. The time was too short, and he could only do this. But what Garen didn't expect was that the Redfish mecha could actually make fine adjustments during such an explosive high-speed sprint. She just moved her body slightly to the left, just in time to hold the spear under her arm, letting it pass through, and struck hard on the Wings of Freedom fuselage with the cross sword in her hand. Although Garen had already unleashed Wings of Freedom's Heart of Freedom ability at high speed, his speed was still far behind. In an instant, he was hit in the head and chest by a cross sword. Suddenly everything went dark, boom. Then whatever poison was around disappeared, leaving only complete darkness. Pilot Sophia wins. The electronic sound sounded again. Puff. The cockpit ejects automatically. Garen stood up and walked out. Sophia had already come out first and looked at him quietly. The students who came with him were also around, including Angie Tylin. The students were whispering, but Angie Tylan looked unsurprised. "How's it going? Do you feel the difference?" Sophia asked softly. "My own consciousness is only level 3, but by using the permission modification, I can control level 5 mechas. Although it is the lowest level, you can almost feel the gap between mecha levels. I was once like you, and Taiwan's level 4 mecha has been tortured like this." "Why is the gap so big?" Garen recalled the moment just now and knew that the gap between the mechas was far greater than he imagined. This is the most powerful point of the consciousness mecha. The built-in variable speed system can accelerate the pilot's own nerve speed. This acceleration will continue to strengthen as the pilot's consciousness level increases. In the pilot's in the eyes, the accelerated world is like an extremely slow world. All movements that cannot reach a certain speed can only be the most ordinary slow motion, just like watching a movie in slow motion, Sophia explained. This is just a general level. Senior pilots can even control the mecha to release a force field. If the mecha does not meet the strength standard, it will not even be able to get close, Angie Tylan said with emotion. "It's like magnetization force fields. Powerful magnetic fields will affect the body balance of pilots and mechas. Unless they are non-metallic mechas, they cannot even get close. They can only be attacked from a distance by the opponent. There is also a reflective force field, which is the latest white light organization. What he is good at is said to be able to instantly reflect back any attack from a mecha below his level, no matter how strong it is. He is simply an invincible torture machine." Garen frowned deeply. The gap between consciousness levels can actually be expanded to this point through the amplification of the mecha. It has to be said that he still underestimated the horror of the consciousness mecha. It seems that only mechas can deal with mechas. Unless the secret weapon has reached the pinnacle of the Legion or Demon King level, the pure destructive power is still not as terrifying as mechas. Garen finally had a clear positioning on the level of mechas. He had indeed used all his strength just now, and no matter how strong his body was, facing a mecha attack, unless it reached a very high level, the force of that slash would not be something that his body could withstand at all, and there would be at least hundreds of tons of impact. Power, this is only calculating the pure power of the mecha, and does not calculate the damage caused by consciousness. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 846. The Gap Caused by the Mecha. After leaving the eagle's nest, Garen was still thinking about this issue. The atmosphere of the entire eagle's nest is very fanatical and impulsive, and the members inside seem to be passionate and advocating violence. Garen had a vague feeling that this might be related to the nature of the training method of Painting's claws. Even he himself was the same. He seemed to be gradually affected by practicing this exercise method. According to Sophia's description, it seems that other exercise methods also have a certain impact, such as wind mark. No matter what your original temper is, the higher you practice wind mark, your character will be affected to a certain extent and you will become more flexible and not sluggish, varied, and clever. There is also the brute force Warhammer. After practice, it will also affect the character, becoming slightly violent, irritable, and violent. In contrast, Painting Talon only becomes slightly colder and prefers the strong. In the following days, he went to the eagle's nest every day to practice with the masters inside. With the help of the Zion Cane, the potential points are constantly accumulating, becoming more and more. However, before completely consolidating his foundation, Garen does not intend to directly use the potential points to rush forward. That would not make much sense. Those who have practiced secret martial arts, he is very aware of the importance of the foundation. If the foundation is not solid, even opponents of the same level may easily seize one of your weaknesses and defeat you effortlessly. In combat, as long as there is a loophole, it may be fatal. If the foundation is not solid, it is likely to lead to loopholes in your own system. And there may be more than one. Time passed day by day, and more than half a month passed in the blink of an eye. In the cafeteria, in the somewhat noisy dining hall. What? My brother is missing, Garen looked at the watch terminal. Yes, we always thought he was staying in the pastry shop where he worked. We usually contacted him once every half-month. This time we contacted him and actually heard that he had gone home early. But we haven't seen him at all for so long. Pass Alan, Mother Amy on the watch screen said anxiously, we have tried every method here, but there is no news. Now we can only see what method you can come up with. Garen recalled the impression of Alan in his mind. He was a shy, gentle, and introverted guy who always had long hair and didn't dare to speak loudly. Such a person would never deliberately not contact his family and lose contact. Given his character, something must have happened that prevented him from contacting his family. Where's Dad? He is still dealing with things in the company. He has an emergency meeting in the afternoon and he is preparing the meeting materials. Amy looked tired. Your grandma has been ill recently and has problems with her legs and feet. He is also busy taking care of her now. And said here, her face became even more worried. And what? And the police came to the house this morning to investigate. They said that your brother was suspected of a terrorist attack and needed to be investigated. Her mother, Amy, had experienced several shocks in just one day, and she looked increasingly haggard. Terrorist, is it white light? Garen frowned. Since he received the investment from Blue Narcissus, his family's economic conditions have indeed improved a lot, but new problems have emerged one after another. He originally chose Nono Siwa because the soul seed felt a different aura from him, but after so long, he still didn't encounter any big changes. Instead, something like this happened to his brother Burin. I heard that it is related to the brother of the pastry shop manager. Now that a wanted order has been issued, what should I do? Your brother has been living alone since he was a child. What if something unexpected happens to this? My mother, Amy, actually started to cry. Don't worry, Mom. I'll try to check through the relationship to see what's going on. Garen comforted her. Okay, I'll find someone right away and give you news tonight. Well, we must hurry up. What if something happens to your brother? After disconnecting, Garen took a deep breath, and the soul seed began to fluctuate slightly again. It was obvious that something big might really happen this time. After thinking for a while, he began to dial the numbers of his network one by one. Xylan? Do me a favor. Something may have happened to my brother. I don't know what it is. Please investigate the situation. Okay, I'll treat you to dinner later, bye. Vivian, there is something you need to check here. Something happened to my brother. He disappeared half a month ago. Well, okay, as soon as possible. Kent, where is the charming mercenary group? I asked their people to check what's going on with my brother. They were given the task of protecting my family. What now? Did I get so much money a month for nothing? You're welcome, be tough. Yeah. Disconnecting the terminal, Garen fell into thought. I only ate half of the nutritious meal in front of me, and my speed became slower and slower, and I stopped for a moment in a daze. What's wrong? Is there any trouble? I heard your call just now. Sophia walked over from the side, holding a small nutritious meal and a glass of red juice. It's Senior Sophia. Garen greeted politely, with a frown on his face. Bolan has always regarded him as his idol and dream. He is also a kind little guy and gave himself all the opportunities to go to school. This brother, although Garen is not his real brother, since he has entered this body, this love must be passed down. There's something going on at home. My brother is missing. I'm the best at finding people. Sophia nodded. If you don't mind, can I help you? Then I'll trouble you. Senior. Garen wasn't polite either. People only come and go when they come and go, and that's called communication. Nothing, wait for my news, no later than tonight. Sophia smiled. Senior, eat slowly. I'll leave first to deal with some matters in the academy. Garen stood up. Our Eagle's Nest happened to have an investigation mission released. It is a high-level mission issued in the name of the military. Pilots above the first level are eligible to take it. It happened to be issued in response to the recent rumors of terrorists in the city. If you don't mind, you can go take it all together, and maybe we can get some latest news from the military, Sophia suggested. Oh? I'll go take a look. Thanks for the information, Garen nodded. Without stopping at all, he went directly to the Eagle's Nest. After asking several members, he found a small room in which an entire wall was replaced by a huge display screen, which densely displayed the activities of various local organizational departments. Missions published by the Eagle's Nest and associated bonus credits. Among them are the investigation of mysterious mechas outside the city, night security patrols, escort training, fire rescue, mecha performance tests, etc. Dozens of tasks are hung on it, and they are refreshed from time to time. There are new tasks that appear, and there are also tasks that show a completed status and directly terminate and fade away. There are also many members here who are selecting tasks. Garen was immediately recognized by many people when he walked in. He has become somewhat famous since he competed in a martial arts arena. He can reach the third level of consciousness at a young age. It can also be ranked among the top 300 in the Eagle's Nest. And they also joined Blue Narcissus, an elite valued by Blanding. Although they did not enter the elite, if they had not failed in the duel with Xylan, they would probably be qualified to enter the ranks of elite members. No, in just half a year, he has rushed from the first and second level to the third level. The future is bright. So no one dared to look down upon him. When they saw him coming in, they unconsciously made a gap and smiled kindly. Garen nodded and smiled to express his gratitude. This group of people also had first and second levels. Those who dared to look at the mission were not ordinary students. They walked to the suitable position that was given up and looked up carefully. Soon I found the team mission issued by the military department, investigating the daily tasks of patrolling Black Pan City. He quickly dialed the number above. Then leave your student number and name in the automatic message. When he left the mission room, he happened to meet a strong man with short blue hair coming in. The two met face to face. The faint feeling lingering on the other person was the third-level consciousness fluctuation. No Siwa, the other party smiled. Brother Ng Thailand mentioned you to me and said you are very powerful. I am Kong Bei. I didn't expect to be so lucky that I met the freshman chief. It's just a matter of luck. There are many people who can achieve the third level of consciousness even in the Eagle's Nest, Garen said modestly. This is not a matter of luck. Kong Bei shook his head. What mission did you accept in such a hurry? Do you need help? No, it's getting late. Next time we talk, the mission starts today. Garen raised his watch and looked at it. Okay, next time we talk, I'm going to take on the mission and have some fun, Kong Bei said casually. Let's exchange contact information. Let's go out for a drink together if you have nothing to do. I heard about the martial arts performance that day. Even Bailey had to fight with you several times to no avail. Amazing. Okay, let's come together when we have time, Garen nodded. The two of them passed by each other. Garen checked the time. There was still a certain amount of time until the mission issuer would contact him. He thought about it and went to the next class first. There are many fewer familiar faces in the class. Many people are forced to repeat the grade because they do not meet the requirements for the level subjects. Some of the people are cobbled together from other classes. This is also the practice of Black Disc Academy. Every year, some people will be dismissed. Some people who have been postponed from a grade, and when the new class is upgraded, part of the number will be replenished due to insufficient numbers. Walking into the somewhat noisy class, the next class was about to start. Except for a few elites, the other students were still attending class honestly and according to the rules. This was their main way of getting credits. Unlike the top players like Garen and Faye Bailey, who can get a lot of credits by participating in a competition and reaching a certain ranking. Or you can get credits by taking a mission in the Eagle's Nest, and it's even easier to take assessment courses. As soon as Garen entered the classroom, many people's eyes immediately turned around. Some came over to greet him warmly, while many others quietly observed and commented. Faber was also absent, so the position was vacant. Wei La and Kair, who were sitting in the seats, were busy reviewing for course exams recently and were not with Garen for the time being, but now they also stood up and came over. No, why do you have time to come to class? Kair asked with a smile, flipping up her wavy shawl curly hair. Come here to see Wei La for something. Garen's eyes fell on Wei La, and his calm eyes made her shrink slightly. Let's go out and talk. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 847. Okay, Wei La's scalp was numb, and she followed Garen out of the classroom and stood in a corner. Did you deliver the dormitory key last time? Garen spoke directly. Yeah. If you weren't here, they asked me to send you to your dormitory. Wei La tried her best to make a natural and normal expression. Have you moved anything? Only pull for a moment. What is it? What did you say? The files in my drawer. Garen reached out and patted her face. Do you know that it is against the law to rummage through other people's important things without their permission? I didn't. Don't accuse me wrongly. Wei La tried her best to look like she was wronged, but her heartbeat was getting faster and faster. Forget it, I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. I know your situation. The pocket money your family gives you is not enough, right? It doesn't matter, I have money. Of course you need to help me do something, as long as you do it beautifully. I don't care about tens of thousands of expenses. Galen clapped his hands and said relaxedly, of course you can refuse, but in this case, the video in my hand can only be sent to the college's public big screen. He put up his watch, and the screen above showed that in his own dormitory room, Wei La was secretly flipping through the drawers in the dormitory, and also took out some cash from the bottom drawer and put it into his pocket. I don't know what the expressions of those little boys who admire you will be like after they know this video. And your good friends. Garen looked at Wei La's face indifferently, and her face quickly turned pale, with a vague look of panic and ignorance in her eyes. At a loss. You and I didn't mean it, I was wrong. Really, I just lost my mind for a moment. Wei La was a little incoherent. Okay, I don't care if you are confused for a moment, I will come to you when needed. That's it? Garen pinched the other person's face and turned to leave. Nighttime. Galen sat on a leisure bench by the roadside of the college, quietly reading through the relevant information sent from various channels. The whereabouts of his younger brother Bolan are still unknown, but what we found is that the last place he appeared was at the Wanchi Pastry House, the small shop where he worked. After that, there was a loud explosion from the river, and no one was there anymore. Saw him. The news obtained from almost all channels is the same, whether it is Vivian or Sophia. Toot. Hello, Kent. No news. Okay. After hanging up the phone, Garen frowned again. His intuition told him that what happened to his brother Burin this time was probably not a simple matter. The soul seed is trembling slightly until now, which is obviously a major event that can affect the general trend. Soon the phone rang again. It was the military mission issuer, a middle-aged man. Student Nono Siwa, I am very happy that you, as a third-level student, can choose this mission we released. We have drafted a mission team with 15 members. You will be the leader to lead the patrol in the relevant area. The patrol time is 1 month. You can choose an area in the remaining empty area as the mission location. Understood, What kind of patrol is a team of 15 people doing? What target is it targeting? Garen asked. Patrol in mecha mode, targeting a broken red and white mecha. Once you encounter the opponent, please notify the headquarters immediately, hold it back, and if possible, kill the opponent with all your strength, the middle-aged man answered meticulously. This is the map area selection. He sent over a block map of Black Pan City. Garen looked at the map. The total number was divided into more than 30 areas. Nearly half of the areas had been assigned tasks. For the remaining areas, he did not hesitate to choose the place closest to his home. That area there, it happened to be unselected. The map is confirmed. We will meet up with the team members tomorrow. The meeting location will be determined by ourselves. The team members' group number is this. Another group number was sent from the other side. Garen nodded, asked for some precautions again, and then disconnected. Just after the call was disconnected, Xylan's phone number also came in. After checking it, there were more than 10 missed calls from before. It was obvious that she had been dialing the number for a long time. As soon as the call was connected, Xylan's heavy breathing came from the other side. No, guess what I found? Feeling something unusual in his gut, Garen immediately sat up straight. What's wrong? Did you make some big discovery? It's not just a great discovery, Xylan said fiercely. Originally, it was because of your brother's matter that I went to find a brother in the Academy's high-level intelligence department, and I got a shocking secret from him. Say it. With Xylan's knowledge, it is said to be a shocking secret. One can imagine how powerful and shocking the secret is. Garen quickly calmed his breathing and listened carefully to the voice on the other side of the watch terminal. Do you know about the forbidden mecha? Xylan's first words shocked Garen's heart. The legendary mecha is almost equivalent to myth. It is a strategic weapon capable of destroying planets. It is the ultimate powerful existence in the universe, Xylan continued without waiting for Garen's answer. What does that have to do with the secret you got? 300 years ago, due to the failure of the battle, several of the forbidden mechas of our home star Federation collapsed into various fragments and were scattered to various planets. They are called forbidden parts. And our home star has several such fragments. Xylan explained in a low voice. Do you know why the Black Pan Academy sent out black-clad generals and elite students on a large scale some time ago? It was to find the forbidden fragments. And the news I got is that the big explosion by the river outside the city not long ago was probably a forbidden machine. The core part of it is caused by the taboo intelligent core. Intelligent core, Garen's heart was shocked. Even he couldn't help but feel a little moved in his heart. Are you sure the forbidden intelligence core is still intact? The people of the White Light organization have mobilized in large numbers just for this. They are now competing with the masters of the academy, and no one will give in, Xylan said quickly. I got accurate information. The intelligent core can actually temporarily summon the forbidden mecha. Projection, releasing a short-term forbidden power. It is absolutely impossible to do this without a complete core. Garen fell silent. This news was a bit heavy. He needed to digest it. It was like an ordinary person suddenly encountering an adventure. It was said that there was a magical weapon somewhere nearby. As long as he got it, he could practice magical skills to destroy the world. The same goes for the taboo intelligence core. For Garen, what he urgently needs most is training methods, powerful advanced training methods. Generally speaking, reaching level 5 is the pinnacle. After that, it can only be the realm of inherited mechas. There are also strengths and weaknesses among the inherited mechas. The forbidden mechas belong to the top star level, and they are also top-level existences even among the inherited mechas. Such an intelligent core definitely contains many extremely powerful exercise methods and various scientific and technological materials in its database. Especially those training methods, even if a fool gets it, he can turn around and achieve great things, and he can dominate one side again. The higher UPS of the college are also involved. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Xylan said seductively. We are too weak. There is no benefit in getting involved now, Garen said calmly, returning to his normal thoughts. Although you are tempted, you must act within your ability. That's true, but we are students of the academy. If we can help the academy get the core. As far as I know, the white and red mecha you are searching for now is a terrorist from the White Light terrorist organization. And the reason why if he still refuses to retreat despite being severely wounded, the person he has been tracking is probably the one who holds the core of the taboo, Xylan said quickly. If we can help the college get the core, the lowest reward won't be too bad, right? Garen's face was expressionless, but his heart was indeed moved. I'll start patrolling tomorrow. I will keep you informed of the latest information at any time. You can patrol the city with a mecha, and it is justifiable. No one dares to gossip about you. If necessary, I will mobilize the family's mecha masters to help you. Xylan made a decisive decision. Good. Then that's it? Garen disconnected, his eyes dark. He stood up from the bench and walked towards the loop of his dormitory. Next day. A dozen black mechas slowly landed on a landing field somewhere on the edge of Black Pan City. The black humanoid mecha carries a red disc shield on its back. It looks like it is wearing red hats. It has a strong body and red eyes, plus a unified double scimitar in its hand, and a sword with high explosive power. Fish A-type engine, this is the standard equipment in the city. The morning sunlight fell, and after a while, another taller black mecha flew over and landed in front of these dozen mechas. Hello, sir. More than a dozen mechas shouted loudly at the same time. The sound was like thunder. The increase in the mecha's output caused a buzz in the surrounding playground. Garen stood in front of more than 10 people. These people were the standard combat team assigned to him by the military. Each of them was a taskmaster assigned by other academies. They were all students trained by other mecha academies in the city. Among them were several of them were veterans of the mission, with rich experience, and they were obviously serving as reminders to him as his deputies. Hello everyone. I am Nono Siwa from Black Pen Academy. I am the standard captain leading everyone to perform tasks this time. I hope we can cooperate well with each other in the next time. The voice showed Garen's calm and unruffled mood. This made several veterans in the crowd slightly surprised. Even the elite students of Black Pen Academy should not be so sophisticated and calm when they were performing a military mission for the first time. Okay, now let's report your name and level. Garen waved his hand downwards, instantly making a whirring sound and pointing to the first mecha on the right. Yes, this mecha was one of the veterans. He stood up and answered loudly in a standard military posture. Anzalu. First level pilot. Carly. First class pilot. Thel Barton. First class pilot. Soon all the mecha team members came out to sign up one by one. What surprised Garen was that one of them was actually a second-level pilot. That man came from another college in the city, Zhanjiang College, and was an elite junior. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 848. War College. Is it the college in Beilu district? Garen looked at the second-level man. He has a very kind and honest face, slightly dark skin, and looks very calm, but there is a hint of hidden cunning in his small eyes. Sir, my name is Alexander. No matter what your name was before, now it will be renumbered. It will be named after an animal. Each person will have a number, which will be assigned automatically. Garen put up his watch, pressed it lightly, and with a swishing sound, the 15 team members and his own number was quickly assigned. After a few seconds, the numbers are determined and transmitted separately. The animal prefix is lion, the team is called the Pride, Galleon is the lion number 1, and the rest are automatically ranked behind according to their strength, until the 16th number. Looking at the row of soldiers standing in front of him, Garen has never really joined the army, and he is not very sure how to arrange it, but as long as it achieves the goal, the focus of the mission is to complete patrols and possible pursuits. The area has been fixed. This area, surrounding it's all their responsibility. Listen, in downtown areas and places with a lot of traffic, you are not allowed to rush into people at high speeds and accidentally injure people. Everyone has a magnetized rope. When you encounter an enemy, throw it out and lock the opponent to wait for rescue. Try to avoid injuring ordinary people. Galen began to explain the affairs according to the first principle. Although these people in front of him knew it, he still had to emphasize it as an obligation. Once innocent people were harmed, even if it was not his actions, as a member of his team, he would have to bear certain responsibilities. People are not allowed to be hurt, buildings are not destroyed without reason, and they are not allowed to leave the patrol area without permission. They must report before leaving the team and be ready to set off the team positioning alarm at the first opportunity. It took more than 10 minutes for the rules to be explained one by one. Now each person is assigned a fixed area and can report any situation at any time. Garen assigned the areas assigned on the map to all 15 team members one by one. Except for himself, who was patrolling, the rest of them stayed within a certain range of the area and sent out communications every once in a while to indicate that there was no problem. On the playground, after allocating areas, 15 mechas took off into the air and flew in all directions. Garen stood on the playground, pulled out a single sword with one hand, and waved it casually. Although it's not very smooth, the materials are pretty good. This is his first mission. If he completes it successfully, his cooperation with the military will gradually increase in the future, and he may even get a position and salary in the military before graduating. This is also the military's method of winning over blacklisted students. 1. Although the military department and the academy have a subordinate relationship, in fact the military department has always been directly under another boss. This boss represents a large number of elites who once separated from the academic camp. Although the high-end strength is not as good as colleges, but the number far exceeds them, which has also led to the military's great desire for high-end talents. Students who practice eagle claws are somewhat affected by the training method and become combative and aggressive. This is consistent with the style of the military, so both parties are unanimously good partners. If this mission is, other clubs outside of the Eagle's Nest may not be able to get such patrol missions. Garen understood. He put away his sword and checked the communicator. The team members were all about to arrive at their patrol locations. All he has to do is wait for the team members to report the situation at any time and change the patrol area after a while. After resting on the playground for more than 10 minutes, Garen piloted the mecha into the air and flew towards the area patrolled by the first team member, number 2. Walking through the streets below, the crowds are bustling. Occasionally, you can see micro-mecha policemen in the form of white spiders. These people operate micro-mechas and are responsible for public security issues. A Taiwanese white spider, more than 3 meters high, is constantly on the street. The mecha patrol lane on the edge moved slowly. Toward the center are 2 sidewalks, sparsely populated with office workers and vegetable vendors, with occasionally some elementary school students and junior high school students mixed in. Towards the middle, in the center of the road, are various traffic flows, small carts and electric bicycles. Motorcycles and bicycles are the most common, followed by single-person scooters used by office workers. The constant sound of horns, students shouting and laughing, the sound of bicycle bells, the sound of motorcycle engines, and the quarrels of vendors all form the daily life scene of this street. From time to time, students cast envious and yearning glances at the mechas flying past. And as long as the people walking on the street see the patrol mechas on the roadside, their eyes can show a strong sense of security. The black mecha piloted by Garen flew slowly in front of the building on the right side of the street. The silent engine would not make any noise unless it was at maximum power. The black humanoid mecha sprayed blue flames from its back and slowly moved forward along the street. Below was a motley flow of people and traffic. Soon, the black mecha holding a knife handle appeared in Garen's field of vision. On a special load-bearing landing platform on the edge of the street, the second team member Alexander, second only to Garen, the strong players were assigned to such a complex area with the largest flow of people. Seeing Galen approaching, Alexander gave him a sharp salute, forming a palm knife with his right hand and placing it diagonally on his left shoulder, briefly and forcefully. "Sir." "Well, the mecha maintains sub-top security at all times. You can relax a little and don't be too nervous. Our department has to be on guard all day long," Galen reminded. "Understood." Alexander smiled. "Sir, someone just sent me oil and water, I don't know." Oil and water. Garen was stunned and immediately realized that as a patrol team, it was usually not their turn to take action. The mecha spiders from the guard team would deal with it, but nominally they were higher than the guard team level. If they found it, it is also very easy to make things difficult for the security team from the beginning. Did someone from the security team send it? They are the local gangsters here. Unlike us who come here occasionally, they are here every day, Alexander replied with a smile. There is a nice club and massage city down there. Sir, would you like it? The guy laughed lewdly. This. I heard there is a very good-looking man. Galen was originally a little tempted to go for a massage with hot water to relax his body, but when he heard this, he suddenly felt a chill in his heart. Go on your own, I'll continue patrolling. Just be careful not to be too presumptuous. Anyway, the chance of encountering terrorists in the city is too small. Those who can carry out tasks in the city are either strong or have good backgrounds. After all, patrolling in the downtown area is a lucrative job. He didn't bother to offend these people. He controlled the mecha to leave the downtown area. In front of him was a clear river that was as curved as a ribbon, with several large and small white ships swimming on the sparkling river. In the early morning, the mecha driven by Garen slowly flew to a supporting point by the river and landed. Looking across from the river, the iconic hanging garden trade city of Black Pan City stood on the opposite side. The entire trade city building is like a pencil tip piercing the earth. It is thousands of meters high and is entirely white. It is densely covered with neon lights and billboards of various colors. There are also promotional airships flying around the edges. Advertising leaflets will be dropped. Compared to the excitement on the other side of the river, there was even more excitement on the other side of the trade city. It seemed that some kind of lively celebration was being organized, and the sound of music and singing floated over from time to time. Garen looked far away and could see the dense crowd, almost shoulder to shoulder, like black sesame seeds sprinkled on a pile, and he could only see a dark mass of human heads. The faint morning sun fell on the river, glowing with countless pale golden phosphorescent lights. Garen simply stopped temporarily, sat cross-legged on this circular supporting point, rested quietly, turned off the mecha's propulsion engine, and fell into complete calm. Anyway, he had to wait for news from Xylan, and the other team members probably wouldn't want him to patrol everywhere. As long as nothing happened in this area, everything would be fine. He reached out and pressed the button in front of him. Swish. Amidst the subtle sound, the cockpit of the mecha slowly lifted outward, like half an eggshell, revealing the galleons in the driver's seat inside. He took off his helmet, stood up directly from the cockpit, and placed one arm of the control mecha on the ground. He walked down the arm and stood at the edge of the weighing platform, enjoying the cool river breeze and breathing fresh air. Behind me, there was the faint sound of traffic on the street, the voices of passers-by, and the chatter of elementary school students and junior high school students going to school. Garen straightened his hair, and before he knew it, his hair had reached his shoulders. His black and smooth hair was soft and shiny, with a hint of blue under the radiation of the cold prison peacock technique. He raised his hands and saw that the skin had turned blue-white, almost translucent, smooth, and flawless, and all the scars and blemishes had been transformed and eliminated. The secret martial arts of life is a top-notch skill for beauty, he laughed at himself, and Garen unzipped his driving suit. The black tights were gently loosened, and the collar turned into a stand-up collar blocking both sides of his neck, revealing the outline of strong muscles underneath. Since turning around, due to practicing the cold hell peacock skill, Nanosawa's original slender figure has completely disappeared. Instead, he has a strong and tall physique. The upper body and back show standard inverted triangle muscles. The arms are strong and powerful. The man stood next to the weight-bearing point, with black clothes draped around him. Perhaps it was because of Garen's soul that he seemed to have an ordinary and plain appearance, but the eyes between his hair seemed to be dimly lit, and through the hair, he gave people an intimidating and sharp feeling. In addition, the corners of Nanosawa's mouth were curved downward, giving people a threatening feeling that he might get angry at any time, which made it even more difficult for others to enter. Generally, a person with a weaker personality would probably not even dare to look at him when standing in front of him. The tall body, the cold face, the slightly shining eyes, which seemed to be angry at any time, like a suppressed volcano. Although Garen himself is not such a personality. But various signs and reasons eventually led to him looking like this now, this very fierce look. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 849. Call. Garen took a deep breath, then let it out slowly. Look, that's a black cloud-level advanced mecha, a child's joyful cry suddenly came from behind. That adult is the driver. So awesome. Garen turned around and saw a group of passing elementary school students on the road looking eagerly at the tall mecha on his side. They were all obviously avid mecha enthusiasts. But the originally eager expression froze when she saw him suddenly turning his head. Several primary school students carrying school bags were frightened by the fierce look on his face and stepped back. How awesome! He is indeed a man who can drive a black cloud, a little guy pointed at him loudly. Boys, Garen said in a funny voice, but his smile obviously looked more sinister, giving people a vague feeling of a ferocious sneer. Run! A group of primary school students dispersed and disappeared in an instant. Garen touched his face speechlessly. No wonder Wei La was so frightened by his few words before. It turned out that he had unknowingly developed a very intimidating face. It's time to continue patrolling, Garen breathed out and returned to the cockpit. Time passes slowly, and potential points are constantly accumulated, but Garen has no intention of using them. His biggest problem now is that his foundation is not solid. While completing tasks every day, he is also pondering the details of the training method for Painting's claws, as well as the use and response methods of various techniques. The patrol mission went by day, and it was the same every day, going around to inspect the mission status of each team member. But in fact, Garen just randomly picked the patrol area of a team member to check out, and was too lazy to go to the rest. Most of the time it is to rest on the platform by the river, blowing the river breeze and breathing fresh air. Elementary school students and junior high school students passing by after school every day always bring him a relaxed atmosphere. As time went by, Garen's various uses of the eagle's claws quickly caught up with other senior students in the eagle's nest. The original lack of foundation caused by rapid improvement was quickly made up for. More than 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. The weather is getting colder, and the faint sunshine in the morning is still there, but the temperature has become weaker and weaker, and I feel nothing when it shines on my body. Garen stood beside the weight-bearing point as before, looking at the scenery in the distance. Diddy. The phone on the watch rang slowly. He clicked to connect. The news about your brother has been found. Zylin's first words made Garen perk up. It's not unexpected. He was involved in the big explosion by the river. He may be involved in the white light terrorist incident. You have to be mentally prepared. In other words, two things are actually one thing, Garin frowned. That may be the case. Although you have been asked to set out dozens of patrol teams all over the city to capture the red and white mechas, no one actually expects you to really catch him. I got the news that as long as you find a dilapidated mecha, the black patchwork mecha should be able to find the forbidden core. Old black mecha, Garin repeated. What about my brother? I don't know the specific situation. I'll give you a location. It's the information I got from the intelligence department. The area where the other party is most likely to flee should be in this area. The data was transmitted quickly, and Garin opened it and glanced at it. His eyes flickered. From this point of view, the area where I am stationed is really the most possible area. It's true. Although I don't know why, the other party is indeed running towards you, Xylin affirmed. You'd better pay attention to your surroundings at all times. That's it? I will support you at any time. Call this number at critical moments. Learn. After disconnecting the phone, Garin's heart became heavier and heavier. He was now certain that his brother Burin must be related to this matter. If Alan is really involved, then there is another important reason for coming to this area, which is to visit his parents and family. This explanation is barely feasible. But, how did their whereabouts get revealed? Even if you were exposed, you could still escape smoothly. Garin speculated that the other party must have a powerful escape method unknown to everyone. After getting on the mecha again, with a pop, blue flames erupted from the back of the mecha, slowly took off, and began to truly patrol along the fixed patrol route. Time passed slowly, from morning to noon, and after lunch, it was still peaceful. When he patrolled the 5th Division, Garin suddenly felt that something was wrong. The 5th District is a cluster of factory buildings, warehouses, and the like. There are not many people there. There are tall alleys formed between the factories everywhere vehicles can occasionally be seen entering and exiting. In the afternoon, there were not many people to see here. Garin slowly landed on the weight-bearing point, and his extremely keen senses allowed him to feel subtle differences through the mecha. Frowning slightly, Garin began to carefully identify the source of the strangeness in his senses. Chi. When the cabin opened, he jumped out and stood on the ground. It's a shock. He narrowed his eyes. The ground is shaking. This vibration was very, very weak, and even the sensors could not identify it, but Garin's powerful 5 senses allowed him to clearly feel that there seemed to be some heavy object running under the earth. It's a mecha, he came up with the answer instantly. Sewer. He suddenly turned over on the mecha, and flew directly into the fuselage, heading towards the nearest sewer entrance. The patrol missions of these days and his memory of the area map in advance have made him very familiar with the nearby terrain. He instantly called up the sewer network design diagram from the internet, memorized it, and flew towards the entrance and exit quickly. As soon as I arrived, I saw the entrance and exit of the sewer. The cover specifically for engineering mechas to enter and exit had been opened. It was dark and nothing could be seen inside. There was a series of water-stained footprints on the roadside. They were obviously mechas. Imprint. Sure enough, it's here. Garin quickly picked up the communicator and was about to call the team members, but then stopped. Instead, he directly dialed the number Xylin gave him. How about it? Bring your people here. Locate my location, quickly. Clear. Without any further words, the phone hung up. Garin concentrated on following the footprints to catch up. The factory area was very large, and the team members who were originally stationed there had gone somewhere to have fun. There were no people here, not even a guard spider mecha. Garin quickly chased in the mecha, quickly crossed the open area, made a sudden left turn, and entered the alley between the factories. Coincidentally, a black and worn-out mecha was facing away from him, running quickly towards the other end of the alley. What was strange was that the opponent's mecha did not have a flight engine, but its footsteps made no sound at all when it stepped on the ground. Caught you. The galleon engine exploded violently, and the mecha rushed forward. Both arms instantly drew swords. Clint was so frightened that he saw the black mecha rushing behind him from the sensor on his back. "I'm going to die, I'm going to die," he shouted. "I can still support you in short distance jumps." "Pay attention," Chi-Yu shouted loudly. Flash. Chi. Just when Galleon was about to hit the opponent, the old black mecha twisted and disappeared from the spot, completely dissipating out of thin air. A whirlwind swayed in its place. Garen's expression remained unchanged. He had already anticipated that the other party might have troublesome means of escape. The mecha squatted on the ground, its head sensor lying on the ground and listening carefully. After a moment, the mecha flew up and quickly flew in the other direction. Clint was panting and sweating as he quickly ran between the warehouses. Bang! A black exquisite mecha suddenly landed in front of him, blocking the way. The violent swords swept over like two silver-gray mist. Flash, Chi-Yu flashed and jumped again without saying a word. Chi. As soon as his eyes blurred, Clint appeared again in another alley. "That guy is too scary. I've fought against that guy Bai Hong a few times. How come I have no power to resist against this guy?" Clint's face was filled with confusion. "It's different. Bai Guang's mecha has a weak foundation. Except for its strength, everything else is useless. Now this mecha obviously has a very solid foundation, and its skills in combat are very good. It's not like most characters that rely on consciousness." Chi-Yu quickly explained. Suddenly, a silver-gray mist shot over and was in front of him in an instant. "Be careful," Chi-Yu shouted. It was too late. Clint only felt his body shake violently, and his shoulder was shot directly through. A long knife split the shoulder, then pierced the ground behind him, and penetrated deeply with a sneer. The electric sparks of the damaged machine body flickered, and before there was any time to think, a black mecha fell out of thin air and hit him with a knife in the head. Clang! At the critical moment, Clint raised his right arm to block, and at the same time kicked his opponent's lower body hard with his right leg. "Look at my trick," boom! The legs of the Clint mecha suddenly separated automatically, and shot out like rockets, hitting the Galleon mecha between its legs. But unfortunately, at the critical moment, Garen raised his knee and knocked it to the other side. "How is it possible? Even Hung Bei was tricked by my trick," Clint shouted in disbelief. "Run away. This guy is not something you can handle." Chi-Yu activated flicker again. It was extremely thrilling, and a silver-gray sword flashed across the place where he originally stood, but it was completely empty. "You can't escape quickly." He put away his sword and stood, the eyes of the Galleon mecha lit up red. "Is everyone here?" He raised his wrist and asked in a low voice. "Yes, miss, let us all obey your orders," the man opposite replied. "Pay attention to the spread. With a distance of 500 meters around my position, that guy can't jump very far. His energy is being consumed, and the distance is getting shorter every time," Garen ordered. "Clear." The pilots sent by the Xylan family all operate miniature mechas, so as not to attract attention. Only the army and the security department can operate the mechas openly in the city. And Garen happened to have the name of a military department and patrolled openly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 850. Next, let me see your strength. Kid pulling out the two swords on the ground, they struck each other, and the red light in the eyes of the Galleon mecha became more intense. Call. Amidst the roar of the mecha, Garen rose into the air and flew towards another sensing location. Klin piloted the mecha and ran on the ground as if it were flying. The mecha was extremely fast and did not look as heavy as its appearance. One of its arms showed signs of breakage, which was the result of blocking Garen's sword just now. It was released earlier. One of the legs from the sneak attack also flew back automatically, which shows Chayu's powerful ability to transform the mecha. The large alleys in the factory area are tall and spacious, perfectly suitable for mechas to run at high speeds. Klin's mecha made no sound of footsteps, and even the slightest bit of electromagnetic induction was wrapped in a special force field to prevent any leakage. What to do now? Klin asked while panting violently. The mecha's speed required his own pilot to bear the burden. If it weren't for the fact that the 9 giant cannons were so magical and allowed him to reach a very high level of physical fitness in a short period of time, another pilot would have run out of energy. After all, there is no buffering equipment inside this broken mecha. After several difficult movements, it only takes more than 10 seconds for Klin's whole body to detect blood imbalance, and his head will be dizzy due to the inertia of the mecha's movements. What else can we do? Run, Chiyu said angrily. If you see an opportunity, run to the sewers. Go again. Then what else can you do? Okay, Klin was helpless. The smell of the sewer was unbearable. If he hadn't been forced to do so, he really didn't want to go there a second time. Unfortunately, current events forced him to do so. The old black mecha was like an incredibly agile disabled person, half running and half jumping as it rushed towards the nearest sewer entrance. Watch your back, Chiyu shouted loudly. Klin quickly rolled forward. This move allowed him to escape many times during the chase with the red and white mecha. He rolled forward quickly with the power of 9 giant cannons, firing them with great force. The distance was long and the speed was fast. It is called the number 1 trick to escape in battle. Bang! There was a deep knife mark where Klin originally stood. Behind him, a black mecha fell from the sky and stood up on one knee. This mecha is clearly the Gallon one from before. Here it comes again. Damn it! Speed up, Chayu was also anxious. Such jumps consumed the energy he had accumulated over the years. Damn it! If the last explosion hadn't consumed too much energy. After hearing this, Klin quickly took a big step and flew out, just enough to avoid the knife coming from behind. Still want to drill a hole? A cold voice came from behind, and another sharp wind blew over. At this moment, a second knife struck from behind. This speed is incredible, Chayu roared, mustering up the last energy, flashing. Chi! Klin moved instantly, and his eyes suddenly flashed, and he no longer knew where he was flashing. But it was obvious that the sewer was inaccessible. Ugh, finally couldn't help it anymore, Klin was vomiting violently while sitting in the cockpit. The continuous jumping and flashing made his body finally unable to bear it. His stomach seemed to have let go of the dam, and he vomited everything out. The yellow, white, and brown ones are mixed together, making it as sticky as 8 treasure porridge. Suddenly there was a disgusting sour smell in the cockpit. Don't get it on me, you disgusting brat, Chayu shouted quickly. The mecha continued to move forward, turned over, and ran forward with long strides. Klin could no longer tell the direction and was running randomly. Found you! Bastard! A dilapidated red and white mecha suddenly appeared from behind. The mecha was in tatters and looked even more miserable than Klin's. The green crystal inlaid on its chest was also broken. For the most part, it looked bleak. It's that guy from Kohaku. What a tragedy! Klin was so weak from vomiting that he reluctantly ran forward, but Kohaku behind him was getting closer and closer. Don't be afraid, I have prepared a secret weapon for you, Chiyu said quickly. What secret weapon? Touch your lower back. Klin touched it and scoffed. A big, thick, black thing suddenly popped out and fell into Klin's hand. It's so thick, looking at the big guy in his hand, Clint couldn't help but marvel. Your sister. Come on quickly. Turn around and give him a blow, Chi-Yu roared. He clenched the huge stick in his hand, which was half as thick as an organism. He didn't know how it was inserted into his body. Clint didn't think much about it, and rolled down on the spot. It originally seemed to be moving forward, but suddenly he rolled back, directly hitting Hung Bei behind him. The giant stick in his hand suddenly hit the opponent with a sound of wind. In an instant, the tip of the stick flashed and actually poked out from behind Kohaku. Seeking death, the red and white mecha sneered and grabbed the giant stick with one hand. Even if the level 5 consciousness was seriously injured, it would be effortless to deal with a level 1 little guy. Even if you fight hard, it is far more than that. Bang! Caught off guard, his hand was empty, and the tip of the stick disappeared 1 meter in front of him. Then Hung Bei felt a pain in the back of his head. The sensor clicked instantly. With a bang, Clint disappeared in front of him again. Hung Bei went crazy. What was that just now? So powerful, Clint endured the discomfort and asked while running at top speed. Magnetized giant rod and small area space extension technology. A must-kill skill at critical moments. If you hadn't been able to break the skin of someone else's mecha, we would have killed the Hung Bei who was chasing him, Chi-Yu Huoda replied. Front, Clint suddenly stopped. In front of him were several micro-mechas with black disc logos. These micro-mechas were only as tall as a person and were worn like tights, like steel warriors. What they have in common is that they all have fluctuations in consciousness that are much stronger than Clint's. You were able to escape for so long while being chased by the captain? Stay with me. The leading soldier opened his arms, and his body suddenly emitted a concussive wave of consciousness, blasting towards Clint. Woo! The distorted wave of consciousness was shaped like a comet, colorless and tasteless, and very fast. 3 consecutive waves rushed over in a line. The ground and walls seemed to be twisting and undulating, turning into a soft texture and constantly vibrating. It's that guy's subordinate. Retreat, Chi-Yu said with a hint of fatigue in her voice. Dodge. Clint felt that his body was numb, and he had the illusion that the huge distortion caused by the space jump seemed to be immune to him. Suddenly, he appeared in front of a tall black mecha again. What a coincidence! Clint turned pale, smiled, opened his mouth and wanted to say something else. Ouch! Suddenly, there was a violent vomiting in the mouth, and all the breakfast he had eaten was vomited out, even yellow bile water was mixed in it. In the cabin, his entire clothes from the chest down were covered with vomit. Aha! A silver-gray sword light struck straight down from top to bottom. Clint moved the giant stick forward like a reflex and smashed it directly. The front part of the giant stick disappeared instantly, as if it was piercing into space, and poked out from the back of the black mecha's head. Clang! In an instant, a silver-gray scimitar was retrieved in front of the giant stick, and he steadily caught the attack. This trick is useless against this guy. Damn it! Let's go, Chi-Yu roared unwillingly, and Clint's eyes flashed again. Swish! 2 sword lights lit up from where Clint was originally, leaving 2 bright scratches, only a moment slower. Garen stood quietly on the spot and slowly sheathed the knife. He can't get far. Chase him. Yes, several replies came from the communication terminal. After looking at the sensor map inside the machine, the red dot was not far away. Galleon's breath became more and more stable. Sucker punch. He actually sat down in the alley and thrust his 2 swords into the ground on both sides. No, Clint vomited loudly. There was a faint trace of blood in the bitter water, which was a sign of gastric bleeding. I can't do it anymore. How can a man say no? You brat, you usually don't listen when I tell you to train more, but now you know how powerful you are. Run. You can't fall here, Chi-Yu yelled. No, it's really not possible. Clint felt like the world was spinning. He couldn't bear the excessive jumping even if he built the foundation with 9 giant cannons. My body was severely exhausted, my vision was blurred, and my vision was blurry. Why, it didn't work just now. Clint reluctantly started running and asked about the situation just now. That guy's close-quarter reaction is too fast, and his fighting skills are terrible. This kind of person has always been a typical example of leapfrog fighting. It's okay to sneak attack an average person with a strange move, but it's useless against such a master, Chaya quickly explained. Now I have to use 1/3 of the remaining energy to prepare a big move, hoping to pass the difficulty, otherwise we will really be doomed this time. If it is less than 2/3 of the energy, I will fall into a coma, and then there is absolutely no hope for a person to escape. How much time will it take? Clint reluctantly asked, not continuing to jump, allowing his body to recover a little. I can't do it anymore. If I jump again, it will be over. I know that if you jump 2 more times, your body's circulatory system will collapse. If there is no way to treat it, there will be no way to survive, Chaya replied. Run this way. The final entrance to the sewer is ahead. Once we get into the sewers, we win half the battle. I feel like I'm going to die. Clint was so weak. Xiaolun is still waiting for you at home. If you don't want to die, give me a try. Go, Chaya flashed, and the mecha rushed out, spanning dozens of meters, and appeared in another alley, with the entrance to the sewer in front of it. The dark manhole cover was like an angel in a dream. In Colin's eyes, it was comparable to the most perfect bride in the world. With tears in his eyes, he opened his arms and rushed over. A manhole cover. At this moment, tears filled his eyes. Time seemed to slow down all of a sudden, and this beautiful moment seemed to be slowed down again and again. Suddenly, a black mecha slowly walked over and used its strong and tall body to completely block the perfect manhole cover in front of him. At this moment, the beauty and tears burst out of Clint's eyes. No. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 851. Chapter 851 Tracking 2. Is this the fugitive that the captain has been chasing for a long time? A disdainful man's voice came from the black mecha. This mecha is slightly smaller than Garen's mecha. It doesn't look as powerful as Garen's Kong. It has a strong body and looks slender and thinner. It holds 2 identical silver-gray long knives in its hands. If Garen's mecha is like a powerful and orthodox swordsman, then this mecha is like a wretched swordsman who takes an eccentric approach. It's not that person just now? There's a chance, Chaya shouted. Flicker. Chi. Clint's eyes blurred, and the fuselage had appeared behind the black mecha. The perfect manhole cover appeared in front of him again. Alexander was furious and startled. His opponent disappeared before his eyes. He instantly put away his contempt. When he heard the siren behind him, he quickly turned around, only to see that Clint had appeared at the manhole cover more than 10 meters away. Reaching for the manhole cover. Suddenly, a white light came from a distance and hit the waist of Clint's mecha. With a bang, it rolled up and flew a long way away. Immediately afterwards, another barrel-thick white light shone, hitting the Alexander mecha's cabin accurately. Boom! The mecha exploded directly, turning into a ball of fire and exploding with countless metal fragments. Alexander was ejected from the cockpit at the nick of time. Explosive particle cannon powered by consciousness. Who dares to use such a terrifying thing in the city? Others broke into a cold sweat in mid-air. Taking advantage of this moment, Clint was fine. He stood up and ran away. The red and white mecha rushed forward and was about to shoot, but was immediately disturbed by an invisible magnetic field fluctuation. With Clint as the center, invisible ripples of strong magnetic field suddenly spread out around the mecha. I lost all my money this time, Chaya roared. Strong magnetic field vibrates, glow. Crack. The magnetic field around Clint's mecha suddenly increased several times, and the ripples spread out in all directions, like the waves of the sea. He firmly pressed the red and white mecha behind him, temporarily unable to move. The huge magnetic field caused more than half of the parts of his body to be temporarily magnetized, which was equivalent to paralysis of the body. The strange thing is that Klin is in the center of the magnetic field and is not affected at all. Run! Before Chi-Yu's voice could finish, Klin ran forward almost as a reflex. With a bang, it crashed through the wall of a factory building, passed through an empty warehouse, and then rushed out of another wall and crashed into another alley. I'll wipe. Along with Chi-Yu's wild curses, Klin suddenly braked. It suddenly stopped where it was, in the middle of the alley. There is a ready-made manhole cover less than 100 meters ahead, but unfortunately, a black machine body is also sitting quietly cross-legged in front of the manhole cover. Garen sat quietly in the mecha, sitting in the alley, staring at the black and worn-out mecha driven by Krillin. His eyes glowed red, motionless, like a sleeping lion. Click. The mecha slowly stood up. There is a faint and inexplicable sense of oppression around the body. Klin stood in the alley, not daring to move. Cold sweat dripped down from the temples and the tip of the nose. The dangerous aura was stronger than that of the broken red and white mecha he encountered earlier. It's this guy from the Black Pen Academy search team again, at least level 3, Chi-Yu's voice was solemn and angry. Trouble, prepare for short-range flashing. Can you still stand it, Klin? Klin was about to cry but couldn't. He was in a state where he wanted to vomit but couldn't. Look at that mecha. It had a gorgeous and rigid black shell and fine and delicate silver patterns. From where he stood, he knew it was a high-end product. Look again. Looking at myself, there are all kinds of dirty stains all over my body, my limbs and torso are missing pieces here and there are dents in the west, which makes me look like a pickup in comparison. He looked at the shining silver-gray exquisite double swords in the opponent's hands, and then looked at the black club in his own hand, and he felt clearly like a short and poor man meeting a tall, rich, and handsome man. Hand over the forbidden core and I will spare your life. Garen calmly held the two swords, crossed them in front of his chest, and made a crisp sound. Flash, Chi-Yu shouted suddenly, and the crippled mecha suddenly became distorted and disappeared directly on the spot. It reappeared dozens of meters behind the Gallon mecha. Without saying a word, Garen jumped back instantly, turned his body, and slashed out with his scimitar. Surprisingly, he caught up with Klin only after a slight delay. Bang! In an instant, a silver-gray scimitar flew through the air and hit the Klin mecha hard on the back of the head. The beating made him stagger, and he rushed forward a few steps in shock, and hit the wall next to him, causing a large hole in the cement. What's going on? Hasn't it already been transmitted? Klin shouted. Sparks flashed in the cockpit, the mecha was seriously damaged, and the sensors were directly smashed. That guy is not an ordinary level 3, Chi-Yu said solemnly. Then what should we do now? Klin almost heard the heavy footsteps coming from behind. It was the crippled red and white mechas of the White Light organization that were about to catch up again. Don't be anxious, just wait. Wait, things will turn around. Chi-Yu's voice became lower. He was also anxious. His originally foolproof escape plan was suddenly blocked by a team leader from the Black Disc Academy. As a result, fatal flaws and loopholes appeared, and he had to find a way to solve it. Where is the core of the taboo? Garen's voice came again. For the weak, holding treasures beyond their capabilities is a sign of death. He took a step forward. Come on, give him to me. Klin's mecha took a step back involuntarily, and with just one blow, it directly smashed the sensor on his head. If he hit him again, wouldn't he be completely finished? There was more and more sweat, flowing down his cheeks and dripping on his collar and chest. The vomit that had dried up became a little wet and sticky again. What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? His mind was in chaos. Klin had no idea what he should do. Chayu had already formed a link with him. If Chayu was removed, his life would be killed at the same time. This kind of link is a complete fusion at the genetic level of the body, and it is not an ordinary mecha contract at all. Turn left. At this moment, Chiyu's roar sounded in his ears. Klin reflexively steered the mecha to turn left. Chi. A white beam of light swept past the side of his mecha, and the laser beam that originally shot at his back hit Garen right in front of Klin. Puff. The laser beam did not hit, but hit the silver-gray sword, sending out a trace of smoke. At the critical moment, Garen raised his scimitar to stand in front of him, accurately blocking the penetrating laser. He raised his eyes and looked at the other end of the alley behind Klin. Ha ha ha. There was a sound of violent and tired breathing from the other side. In the white light, a red and white mecha stood on the other side. It held a 2-meter-long white laser gun in its hand, and white smoke was faintly emitting from the muzzle. Catch up with that brat. Let's see where you run this time, the red and white mecha chuckled, the forbidden core is mine. Red and white mecha? Just in time, Garen crossed his swords and spread his feet slightly. He faintly exuded a powerful offensive aura. The engine behind the mecha moved slightly and sprayed out fine blue flames. It was in a subtle state. In this state, it can explode to the most terrifying and powerful limit at any time. With a roar, he rushed out, slashing through the air with a knife. The fierce blade actually brought up the air and made a harsh scream. A large amount of airflow continuously rolled and flowed in the alley, blowing countless dust and being pulled by the blade, forming an inexplicable strange scene, as if the entire space of the alley had been condensed by a knife. Bang! The two mechas collided violently, and the gun in the red and white mecha's hand was split into two pieces. It took several steps back and barely stood firm. The red and white mecha then looked at Garen's black mecha. The Black Pen Academy team? Just a level 3 team. He said this, but he was frozen in place, not daring to move. Originally, his condition was intact, maybe a level 3 was nothing, but now it was different. The mecha was damaged to more than 780%, and he was also severely injured, and for some reason, the level 3 in front of him gave him an inexplicable sense of danger. Wanzhen destruction, Garen roared, bursting into acceleration for a short time, and the mecha rushed out again, more than doubling its speed. Clang! The two swords suddenly turned into two swords, slashing separately towards both sides of the red and white mecha. Two rays of sword light were like two black ribbons, flashing past the alley, and accurately slashing towards the chest and head of the red and white mecha. Damn it, the red and white mecha only had time to take a step back. Thin ripples emitted from its body, and the sword was delayed for a moment. The machine narrowly avoided the two swords, but the cockpit on its chest was still cut out a few centimeters deep. The wound, the crackling current line was damaged, and there was a noise. You guy! The two mechas almost changed positions, and Garen turned around. He glanced at the thigh of his right leg, and suddenly there was a shallow cut there. The mecha's force field is visible. He is indeed a level 5 master of Baiguang. With the two swords intertwined, Garen felt the twisted force field of consciousness surging around him. This force field continued to slow down the movements of his whole body, as if he was in a swamp. Every movement he made required a lot of effort. If you don't want to die, get out, the red and white mecha roared. Garen's mouth curled up and he laughed. The fuselage is slightly arched, like a tightly compressed spring, pregnant with increasingly terrifying power. The pair of knives were like his arms, and the entire black mecha was like an entrenched eagle, its wings lurking like knives, slowly opening. A blue-white aura slowly rose from Garen's body. Call. The breath spread suddenly, everything around him was slowly frozen, white frost appeared on the ground, and complex ice flowers gradually condensed on the walls. Klin next to him felt cold all over. Rewind. It's freezing radiation, Chayu reminded loudly, with a hint of shock in her voice. How is it possible? How could the freezing radiation that only exists in frozen lakes appear here? Klin repeatedly controlled the mecha to retreat dozens of meters before he felt a little warmer, but even so, a thin layer of ice formed on his body. It was freezing. No, I can't. I'm about to die. The vomit all over his body was frozen and stuck to his body, and he seemed to be hallucinating before his eyes. The red and white mecha was hit by the cold air and its force field was so strong that it retreated repeatedly and looked at Garen in shock. Garen stood up slowly, and waves of blue-white cold air spread around him with him as the center. The cold air seemed to be mixed with some kind of childlike cry, which was weird and terrifying. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 852. In the chaotic cold realm, the truly powerful side of the cold prison peacock kung fu was finally revealed to the world for the first time. With the Gallon mecha as the center, a thin layer of frost formed all around within a few tens of meters. The air gradually became colder, and the weird children's cries were everywhere, as if they appeared out of thin air. What the hell is this? Hung Bei retreated continuously. Even though the mecha was in a constant temperature environment, the weird child's cry could not be avoided. Garen stretched every part of his body, and the mecha's body seemed to be his body. Now that the force field has been neutralized, what do you have left? Before he finished speaking, he suddenly rushed forward, and the two sword lights separated and slashed at each other again. Bang! The two mechas collided tightly, and the two swords slashed at the long gun, creating a crack more than 10 centimeters deep in the gun body. A large amount of cold air spread along the gun body to the red and white mecha. You are looking for death, the red and white mecha roared. The force field around him exploded with full force, the mecha moved at full speed. The horror of the advanced mecha was finally fully revealed, and his speed immediately became so fast that even the afterimage could be seen not as fast. There was only a red and white shadow left that kept flashing, and the dagger in his hand stabbed Garen's cockpit almost at the same time. What was strange was that after the dagger was thrust out, he turned 3 times in a row to avoid Garen's 2 blocks. Stabbed accurately into the left shoulder of the Garen mecha for the 3rd time. Chi! The dagger penetrated deeply into Garen's left shoulder mecha, destroying one of the most critical joint control hubs. Garen snorted coldly and slammed his knee forward, breaking the cracked spear with a click and slamming it into the opposite cockpit. The red and white mecha wanted to hide, but found that his arm holding the dagger was tightly held by Garen, unable to move. If his body was intact, his mecha's power might be much greater than the opponent's, but it was different now. Peng! Large pieces of mecha fragments were scattered in all directions, including black and white. A large area of fine fragments suddenly exploded between the two mechas, hurting both sides. Garen didn't take it seriously at all. He let go of the opponent's arm with his good other hand and struck it with an elbow. At the same time, he held the blade behind his back and used the 5 fingers of the mecha to control the tip of the scimitar with great flexibility, and stabbed the opponent's cockpit violently. This blow was struck by the elbow and the scimitar at the same time, one after the other. The two mechas were in close contact with each other, making it impossible to dodge. With a bang, large pieces of debris flew everywhere. Kohaku slightly avoided the attack, but his waist was also damaged with a large chip. The two mechas were in a cruel state of exhaustion, and the blue cold air had already climbed up the entire lower body and legs of the red and white mechas, seriously affecting their ability to move. The red and white mecha truly felt the fear of approaching death for the second time. The first time was when facing the red-eyed Metro. That time, he had almost no resistance and could only run for his life, but this time it was different. Obviously it's just a level 3 mecha. He sat in the cabin with his hair covering his face, his whole body was decadent and manic, and his whole body was shaking uncontrollably. It's just a 3rd level. Garen's expression remained unchanged, Scarlet warning lights kept erupting around the cabin, and a quantum computer alarm kept echoing in his ears. The damage to the body is getting more and more serious. The red light flashed, reflecting on his face without any emotion. Final blow. His whole body was faintly filled with dense fluctuations of consciousness. Eagle Talon. Come on, the strongest explosion. Wave after wave of consciousness was continuously compressed on his arms, and also acted on the mecha's arms. Since one arm had been destroyed by the hub and could not move, only one arm was left with slowly invisible fluctuations. Call. There was a flash of light and shadow, and the black arm was raised instantly. The scimitar in his hand left only a silver line in the air. Reflection. The red and white mecha roared violently. When the tip of the knife hit the red and white mecha, the huge power of the mecha was absorbed in an instant, as if the surface of the red and white mecha was like a bottomless lake, sucking in all the power. Suddenly, a huge force rebounded from the red and white fuselage at the same time, which was a phantom that looked like a scimitar. It turned out to be a translucent shadow formed purely by consciousness. Garen's pupils shrank instantly, and his consciousness exploded, and a stronger consciousness spread out. But it only had time to slow down the speed of the scimitar shadow for a moment. The scimitar phantom hit his right leg hard. Chi! The phantom cut open a large section of the black plate mecha's thigh. After penetrating through, it hit the wall next to the Klin mecha's cabin. It penetrated the wall and penetrated into the ground, leaving a deep mark. Klin, who was so frightened that his body was weak next to him, broke into a cold sweat. Is this reflection? Chaya could clearly see the principle of this ability. As a mecha, even he couldn't help but marvel at the thought and inspiration spent on such a special technique. The space rebound technology was actually realized in the hands of such a non-heritage mecha. It's really. Chaya didn't know what language to use to describe the genius who came up with this skill. We'd better leave quickly while those two perverts are fighting to death. Klin was frightened again and again. At this time, his nerves were extremely weak and he was weak to speak. Chiyu was about to speak when she suddenly felt a brand new wave coming from the war zone over there. Oh no! Level 4. Level 4 fluctuation. What level 4? Klin asked weakly. That Captain Blackpan actually broke through before the battle, and is now a level 4 master. Chiyu had the urge to scold her. Observing carefully, okay, he is using an exercise method that is easy to break through, the Eagle Claw. I have heard of this exercise method. The increase in each level is not very big, and it can only be regarded as a middle-lower level exercise method. The advantage is that it is easy to advance. Does the exercise method have a big impact? Klin managed to stand up in the mecha, stepped lightly, and gradually moved away from the battlefield. It's very big. The top-level inheritance training method, such as the 9 giant cannons I gave you, has a level of increase that reaches the level of a third-level mecha. Each mecha has its own standard level division, from the worst state to the theoretical material limits that can be achieved will be divided into recognized fixed levels. This is important information that must be released at the same time as soon as the mecha is released, Chiyu quickly explained. The difference in training methods is that once you control a mecha of the same level, if you are a level 1 with 9 giant cannons, you can increase your strength by 3 levels, while your opponent only uses ordinary training methods, and the average level can only increase 1 level at most, or a little more. The first level is a gap of 2 levels. If it is a second level, it is a 4-level gap. If it is a third level, it is a 6-level gap. The higher you go, the bigger the gap. This is just a simple calculation that is fixed and unchanged. In fact, the top level with the inherited training method, the increase in the later period will be more comprehensive and will not just be a statistic. Chiyu paid serious attention to the battle situation. The squad leader's mecha should use the Eagle Claw, so the level 4 amplification mecha is equivalent to the level 4 explosive power. The instantaneous explosive power of the arms of the level 4 amplification mecha increases the hardness. This is the effect of exercise. What about that guy from Kohaku? That guy should use a better training method. The level should be mid-range or higher. The first level amplified mecha is at least one level in energy endurance and speed, so his mecha is 89% damaged. 10. I can still hunt you for so long. If the ordinary mecha would have been scrapped long ago. Chiyu watched intently. Kaobei is a level 5 pilot, and the increase should have been level 5, but he was too seriously injured. The mecha was damaged and he was unable to reach his limit, and his consciousness was too exhausted and he couldn't use his full strength. His current level is at most level 4. In addition, his opponent is very skilled in close combat. He can almost predict his movements and attack and defend in advance. This is what he is like now. Careful, he shouted suddenly. Clint paused. With a bang, a huge boulder like a cannonball hit the wall not far in front of him, denting a large piece of the wall. This is the stone that was knocked out from the center of the battle over there. He was so frightened that he broke out in cold sweat. Considering the condition of his mecha, without Chiyu's protective force field, even this huge boulder could kill him. Okay, keep moving forward, Chiyu ordered. Krillin looked back at the battlefield. Two mechas, one black and one white, were entangled together, and powerful force fields and cold air exploded, constantly distorting the surrounding air and environment. Even the light was slightly distorted and blurred, and only the two mechas could be seen damaging each other. Garen and Kohaku were already on fire. Garen's fighting skills are very terrifying, but his opponent is stronger. Level 5 consciousness bursts out in a short time. Coupled with the difference in mecha performance, even if he uses his potential points to reach level 4 in a short time, he can still only be on par with his opponent. Especially the reflection technique was almost impossible to solve. Only then did he feel how difficult the white light mecha was. He is indeed a master who can escape within the black disk domain for so long without being caught. However, even if the opponent is strong enough, with level 5 consciousness and terrifying reflex skills, his Wan Zhenkung fighting skills can completely see through the opponent's moves, and he can defend and dodge in advance and attack weak points with ease, even if the opponent's speed and reaction are fast in all aspects. But the same goes for his mecha, which can maintain a tie. The cold prison peacock technique could only barely offset the 5th level consciousness slowing force field erupted by the opponent, and the reaction speed of both mechas was reduced to a considerable level. But after all, the level of chaotic cold territory is a bit lower, and it is still slowly being suppressed by the opponent's force field. Garen felt the pressure on the mecha and himself becoming more and more affected. The body has strong physical fitness and is not affected by anything, but the mecha is only the 3rd level mecha unified by the Academy. It is not as good as the 5th level mecha. Now it is aggravated by the force field, and the load is getting bigger and bigger. Even the power furnace began to appear unstable. The output power goes up and down. In the red and white mecha, Hongbei was even more unbearable. The weird child's cry kept getting into his ears like silk threads, ignoring any sound isolation and filtering, constantly harassing his thoughts and mind, making him feel more and more irritable. Becoming more and more uncomfortable, to the point where his consciousness was slightly blurred. There seemed to be impulses welling up deep in my heart, impulses to vent randomly. He tried his best to suppress this impulse. He knew very well that in such a high-level 4th level fight, once he vented his anger randomly and without any rules, the only result would be to be killed instantly, without exception. But the more suppressed this impulse becomes, the stronger it becomes. He was getting more and more impatient. The guy opposite him hadn't found a flaw in his movements for so long. He had a lot of fighting experience and was very powerful. As if he was a veteran who had broken out of the mountain of corpses and the sea of fire, he used several familiar tricks and traps one after another. The opponent actually saw through his intentions at a glance. Even the most reliable compound chain tricks were seen through, and he could only fight head-on. A firefight. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 853. Damn. If it were an ordinary level 3 or 4, there would be a flaw in every 10 moves, and he would have seized the opportunity and defeated it. It would not be like now, with absolute speed but still having no choice but to fight head-on with the opponent, especially the opponent's rigid arms, which were obviously strengthened by training methods, and were almost the same as his 5th level body. Where to go? When the two mechas collided, the mutual damage caused became more and more serious. And his mecha itself was already in disrepair, and it continued like this. Both of them have entered the stage of fighting to the death. At this time, what they compare is their strong enough consciousness and will. Garen's face was expressionless, and he remained unmoved even if one of his arms and legs was crippled. His only remaining arms were used for attack, while the immobile arm was used for blocking. He holds the sword in one hand and lays out layers of knife nets in front of him. Even if he is a boxing master, he also has profound knowledge in sword skills. As long as the knife is regarded as an extension of the palm, he can still explode with powerful power. Consciousness is like the internal force flowing in the mecha, constantly erupting into the most direct confrontation between the two mechas. It increases the hardness and short-term explosive power of Galen's arms, and increases the speed and endurance of Hungbei. But apart from the increase, the two consciousnesses are still engaged in the most primitive and direct confrontation. After all, Garen's consciousness was weakened by one level, and his quality was not as good as his opponent's. The contact had to be released after the stalemate lasted for less than 2 seconds, otherwise his consciousness would lose ground. Once the opponent invades the body, that is when he fails. Clang. The two mecha scimitars and daggers clashed, and there were a few tiny chips on the blades and edges. With the blessing of consciousness, such high-intensity weapons gradually began to be unable to withstand the fire and suffered damage. The tyrannical force field of consciousness and the cold radiation field are mixed together, forming an absolute isolation area within tens of meters around it. The frost on the ground was shattered as soon as it formed. The cold currents were gradually slowed down by the hysteresis field and gradually suppressed, but the weird child's cry was not affected at all. One thigh and 2 arms of the red and white mecha were damaged to varying degrees. At this time, he was staggering and separated from Garen. His back was pressed against the wall of the warehouse, and the sound of heavy breathing came from the cabin. There was already a trace of hallucination in Hungbei's eyes, as if there was a little bit of red light floating in front of his eyes like sparks, affecting his vision. He rubbed his eyes, but he still saw more and more sparks, which were gradually affecting his vision. The point of view. After all, he was a quick level 5 pilot. He was originally only a level 4 pilot, but he was suddenly promoted to the next level. The final result was that his foundation was not strong enough, and his own willpower was not strong enough. In white light, he was ruled by high pressure and fear. Now facing a desperate situation, the chaotic cold territory finally took advantage of him, which in turn affected his spirit. Haha. Mom, I saw you. Where are you? Don't go. His consciousness became increasingly blurred, and saliva began to flow from the corners of his red and white mouth, as if he was hallucinating in front of his eyes. He opened his arms as if he wanted to hug something, but there was nothing in front of him. Garen walked up to him and looked at Hungbei, who was lying limply on the ground. Mom, don't leave me. Don't leave me alone. The effect of the chaotic cold field became stronger and stronger, and Hungbei's consciousness fell completely into chaos. He seemed to be immersed in his most profound hallucination memory. Wow! It's so hot, so hot. Garen raised his sword. Laugh. Klin controlled the mecha to jump to avoid the bullet chain fired by a shuttle of machine guns. With Chayu's cover and prompts, he managed to escape among a group of micro-mechas with his flexible movements. Hurry up! Chayu kept urging. I'm already the fastest. Blood began to ooze from Klin's eyes, ears, and nostrils. The high-intensity fleeing and sudden evasive movements over time put a severe load on his body. In addition, he had to fight for his life many times. Space jump. Even though the internal organs of his body were protected by top-notch exercise methods and consciousness, large-scale organ bleeding occurred. He opened his mouth to speak, but a mouthful of blood blocked his throat and no sound came out. Chayu also felt the seriousness of the problem. Suddenly the mecha stopped hard. In the alley ahead, the black mecha finally caught up. She stood quietly at the entrance of the alley, as if waiting for him to come to the door. Compared to Krillin, who didn't have a buffer system, Garen flew directly, and his speed was much faster than him running on the ground. It's over. Garen dropped the red and white mecha head he was holding on the ground. The hard mecha head rolled and landed at the feet of the Klin mecha. At this time, the micro mecha pilots also slowly and quietly retreated. They only acted secretly and could not be discovered. They intervened in the security affairs of the Black Disk territory openly, which was to give people from other factions of the family enough excuses. Their purpose it has also been achieved, that is to hold back the Klin mecha and slow it down, not to defeat him. The task of defeating him must be completed by Nono Siwa himself. Gradually, there was no movement in the surrounding alleys, leaving only Garen and Klin facing each other. Forbidden Core. Garen stretched out his hand and spread it out. Bring it here. You are just a child and you should not have to endure such a life of escape. You should enjoy your youth, friends, and love in school instead of running away with your life in the dirty underground water. He used words to shake Krillin's mind. He is also afraid that the opponent will go crazy and destroy the core. No one knows whether the Forbidden Core is hard or fragile, because no one has seen the true face of that thing, and it may be in any form. But from the undisguised voice of the other party, you can tell that he is just a young child. Klin took a step back, replaying the cruel battle between the black and white mechas just now in his mind. The opponent actually killed even the red and white mechas. Their strength was definitely not something he could compete with. Click. The Gallon mecha slowly stepped forward. The damaged parts of his body had been temporarily repaired with spare devices, which did not affect normal activities. Such an intact performance at this time only increased the shadow and pressure on Klin's heart. His whole body trembled slightly. Your heart is severely damaged. If you don't receive treatment, your body will collapse and die in less than 2 hours. Gallon further aggravated the other party's psychological pressure. His powerful 5 senses can clearly sense the opponent's heartbeat without any covering device. Klin wanted to cry. It wasn't because he didn't want to hand it over. The problem was that he would die if he handed it over. You still can't tell the difference between death and treasures. Or, is there some connection between the taboo core and you, some kind of close connection that prevents you from handing it over? Garen guessed lightly. Klin felt a chill in his heart. The other party actually guessed the conclusion that was most consistent with the facts just based on his actions. Such a terrifying performance. Is this a powerful pilot at level 4 and level 5? A shadow cast over his heart. Coax. During the roar, Garen stepped forward and punched the left side of Klin's cabin. The mecha flew away and hit the side wall. He followed closely and stepped on Klin's chest with his scimitar high. Raised high, the tip of the knife flashed with a cold light. The movements at this moment were so fast that Klin had no time to react. He was still in a state of mental shock. Coupled with the serious injuries to his body, he had almost no energy to dodge quickly. He only felt that his eyes were blurred, and he was spinning. He had already fallen to the ground, with the tip of the scimitar raised high and about to stab down. His mind went blank, there was nothing, he just stared blankly at the shining tip of the knife. Chi. Brother. Don't. Almost at the same time, a familiar voice from Garen came from beside him. But the knife had already thrust out, piercing the cabin. Blood slowly flowed out from the edge of the crack in the cabin. A similarly black patchwork mecha walked in from the alley entrance beside Garen. The cabin cover slowly opened, revealing the pretty girl sitting inside. Garen looked up and clearly heard his brother's voice, but he moved his lips and looked at the beautiful girl not far away with tears on her face. She had long black hair, almond-shaped eyes, and small mouth, and fair skin, but her expression was clearly "Brother," the girl shouted in tears. Garen was silent for a moment, and finally connected the boy in his memory with the beautiful girl in front of him. "You are Alan." Biting his lip, Burin nodded heavily. Clin is my friend." This was the first time she dared to look directly into Nono's eyes. Ever since he was a child, he had never dared to look directly into his brother's eyes. But this was the first and only time for him. Perhaps it was the exercise method that had transformed him, or perhaps it was because of his worries about Krillin. At this time, even Garen felt confused. With a sneer, the Clin mecha rolled under the knife, pulled it out from the blade, rolled to the other side and sat against the wall. Clin in the cockpit gasped for air. His left thigh was almost cut off by the scimitar, and his left thumb was cut off. Fortunately, at the last moment, Chi-Yu controlled the force field and twisted it with all his strength, otherwise he would surely have died. But the price for this is that Chi-Yu's last bit of strength has finally been exhausted, and she is about to fall into a coma and sleep standby state. Fortunately, I called Xiaolun. "Don't worry, you will be fine." Xiaolun's consciousness is best at treating injuries. "I need more than 10 days to replenish energy. If you don't have anything to do, take more Sunday." Chi-Yu left the last sentence completely in standby mode. Garen was still looking at Burin in a state of confusion. Burin hurriedly stepped forward to pick up Clin, helped him take a deep look at Garen, and ran towards the sewer entrance not far away with tears on his face. Garen moved the scimitar in his hand, but after all, he still did not catch up. The tall fuselage stood in the shadow like a sculpture. A black mecha landed next to Garen. "Captain. Let them go for nothing? Even your sister?" "Laugh." "Hiss." Garen made a sudden backhand slash, strikingly splitting the entire black mecha into two halves from bottom to top. Boom. The black mecha exploded directly and turned into a ball of fire. The firelight made the Gallon mecha blush slightly. He put away the knife with his backhand, looked at the direction Burin left in the distance, turned around and left calmly. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 854. What are you going to do? In a quiet room in the Xylan family, Jialong and Xylan sat opposite each other, eating snacks such as dried venison in front of them. "Killing one of your patrol members won't be a good deal for the superiors, right?" Xylan lazily looked at Garen in front of him. "Indiro died in the line of duty and fought heroically against terrorists, but he still died trying to protect me," Garen answered casually. "Do you think the higher-ups will believe it?" Xylan curled his lips. "So what if you believe it? So what if you don't believe it?" Garen didn't care. "In any case, we paid a heavy price on the battlefield. One of my team members was killed in the line of duty, another person's mecha was destroyed, and I myself was seriously injured. In the end, the red, white, and white terrorists were left behind. This result was powerful enough. Moreover, most people didn't know about the forbidden mecha. What outsiders saw was just a group of terrorists fighting with the patrol. Are you going to just get away with it?" Xylan didn't believe it. "What does it mean to be fooled?" Garen raised his eyebrows and took a sip from a glass of burgundy juice. "I showed my potential and defeated a 5th level red and white mecha. Even if the opponent was seriously injured, he was not an ordinary person. It can be defeated. And when you kill that troublesome boy, aren't there people around you who have been dealt with by your people? Such an excuse cannot deceive the people above. It is okay for a short time, but over time, there will inevitably be no leaks. After all, among the many people I mobilized at that time, there is no guarantee that there will be no leaks. Xylan glancing at Garen, I felt that this guy was really ruthless. He killed the team members who had cooperated just now in a blink of an eye. He was completely different from the average student. This guy was definitely the type who had no inhibitions once he got started. Don't worry, Garen smiled. The point is, I won miserably. The Forbidden Core ran away and was not in my hands. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the Forbidden Core. Bai Guang's mecha must have a technical instrument that can track the core. As long as there is that thing, it would be a good thing if the superiors don't record me as a great meritorious deed. It's true, Xylan didn't expect this for a moment. With that tracking thing, once the technology is cracked and the core of the taboo is sensed, your suspicion will be eliminated immediately. So this paragraph: the buffer time is the most dangerous thing, but with your current status, Blanding, a large group of us, and your relationship with the guy from the Aurora domain, the higher-ups won't kill you without any scruples. Thinking of this, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Now that you know this, doesn't the result be the same whether you let the core go or not? Once the tracking methods on the red and white mecha are obtained by the higher UPS, it will be able to mobilize powerful forces in the entire Black Disk domain. Finding those few people will not. It's too difficult, Xylan said puzzledly. What does it matter? If they can't even solve such a small test, then they might as well die, Garen said indifferently. You are really? Xylan was helpless. Forget it, thinking about these things gives me a headache. Let's go. Let's have a fight. She simply stood up. Next time if you make me worry again, I will give you a slap in the face. She raised her hand. He raised his fist and said fiercely, "It's okay, you can't beat me anyway." Garen slowly drank the drink without changing his expression, looking like he was asking for a beating. You. Warehouse District. In the battlefield area where Garen and Kohaku were fighting, 2 men and a woman holding semi-robotic arm instruments came to this area. The area had been blocked by circles of security teams. The lights on the police cars were flashing, illuminating the area. Everyone's expressions were a little weird. The 2 lifted up the blocking cloth, came to the temporary barrier, and gently stretched out their hands to touch the transparent air barrier. The identity of the special investigator has been verified, please come in. A pleasant female voice sounded out of thin air. The security guards inside immediately looked this way, and some people who had just gathered to watch the excitement also cast their eyes over. Special correspondent. Among the crowd, a middle-aged man with a beard lowered his hat and looked over there along the gap in his sight. This terrorist attack actually even included special commissioners. I heard that only in very serious situations, the government will send such officials to personally investigate, a citizen whispered. What happened here? There was such a huge battle. Most of the warehouse area is probably blocked, right? I heard that it was a fierce battle between the terrorists and the patrol. As a result, the patrol team lost miserably, but 3 mechas were destroyed, and 1 person died in the line of duty. He was an academy student. An uncle sneered and said, I think what happened this time must be fishy. This kind of thing has happened before, but since the general over there was assassinated last time, things have become a little chaotic everywhere. What's the mess? The bearded man followed and asked, pretending to be a passerby, are you talking about the assassination of one of the 3 generals of Black Rain in front of Black Pen Academy? It's just that the Pulse Wave incident has been spread for a long time. Now the murderer has not been caught. He is wanted everywhere. The authorities tried to suppress it several times but failed to suppress it. Now it is spread everywhere that the pilot of the White Light organization is. Aren't they already lurking in the territory and committing crimes? The uncle continued to sneer. Originally, I thought the Black Pan territory would be safer before immigrating here, but I didn't expect it. He shook his head. The bearded man was thoughtful, and stood in the crowd and listened to these people chatting for a while, then quietly walked out of the crowd, picked up the watch terminal and dialed a number. Report the news one by one. In the alley. Two special correspondents were already squatting in the area at the center of the battle and inspecting it carefully. There are residual traces of a strong consciousness force field. It is very obvious that it is a fifth-level force field, the male special correspondent whispered. It should be the mecha of the White Light organization in the report. What did you find there? The female special correspondent frowned and lightly touched the white patch on the wall with her finger. Her blue pupils suddenly rotated, as if the entire center of the eyeball was violently twisting and turning, which was extremely terrifying. This scene only lasted for a moment before returning to normal. There is actually residual cold energy radiation here. Although someone has deliberately eliminated it, I still feel a slight amount of radiation energy remaining. Cold energy radiation? Is it a freezing bomb? The man whispered. I'm afraid not. The report says that this is the place where the top student captain and the terrorists face off. It should be a secret weapon owned by one of the two. The woman shook her head. Sir, we found this. Please come and take a look. The mustachioed captain of the security team not far away came over and shouted. The two walked over and saw the captain wearing traceless gloves and holding a small and exquisite white stone sculpture in his hand. It looked like a squatting human figure or sitting cross-legged. His face was blurred and his clothes were blurred. It's blurry and even looks more like a naturally occurring stone. The reason why it is exquisite is that the back of the stone has delicate and complicated circular patterns, like circles of overlapping magic circles. What is this thing? It's something that was found from the White Light terrorist. After a violent explosion, it can still remain. Our experts can't test the material of this thing. The police chief walked over from the side. This guy is strong and hard-working. The master pilot who climbed up has always been known for his sharp eyesight. This is. The female commissioner picked up the thing and observed it carefully. This is an old tracker. Could it be that? The male special correspondent suddenly seemed to have thought of something. At the same time, the female commissioner also thought of something, and the two looked at each other in shock. Report immediately. What about the radiation residue? Don't worry about him, the important thing is whether this thing is really what we think it is. In the sewer. Cold, dark, and smelly. The two pieced together black mechas moved forward slowly, one behind the other. Burin had used his consciousness to treat Klin's injuries. Although it was not as exaggerated as the cure, it at least maintained the injury and prevented it from getting worse. Slowly things got better. The two stopped for a moment and then continued to move forward in the sewer channel, making random turns and moving along the underground river. The traces of their walking would soon be washed away by the groundwater. Time passes minute by minute. Unconsciously, after driving for a long time, the two of them felt safer. They arrived at a space between sewer pipes that Chiyu had arranged in advance. The entrance was narrow, but the space was just big enough to accommodate two mechas. Klin opened the cabin and walked out. He was covered in filth and almost collapsed. Fortunately, Burin didn't mind being dirty and supported him. You are seriously injured, don't move. Seeing Klin's injury, Burin felt a little better. Her consciousness can form a beneficial life field to replenish Klin's lost vitality, and at the same time form an absolutely isolated protective layer on the other party to prevent bacterial and viral contamination. Xiaolun. How do you know that's your brother? Klin forced a smile. Compared with this little pain, Chiyu's step-by-step training every day. Oh no, the pain of the training course is much stronger. This is the reason why he can really endure the pain for so long. Uncle Chayu told me, Burin replied, found a grooved iron block, hugged it and went out to fetch water for him. Although the groundwater was dirty, after being processed by the Mech's filtration system, it was still barely enough. Can be used to wash your body. Uncle Chayu said that. What happened? Clint could hardly move. As soon as he relaxed, his mind began to feel dizzy. In this state, even if he encounters such a tense and dangerous opportunity again, he could only lie down and wait for death. Once his body relaxed, he took the biggest breath and entered the recovery dormancy mechanism. This is similar to wanting to sleep after over-exercising. But Clint, who was deeply afraid that he would not wake up if he fell asleep, still tried to cheer up and kept looking for topics. He watched a lot of blockbuster movies that were about to be sacrificed as soon as he fell asleep, and it almost became a psychological shadow. He asked me to come over quickly. He said you were in danger. He also said he was my brother. My brother Bulan looked at Clint's broken left thumb and his almost severed left thigh, although the scar was somewhat closed. But the red color still looked very scary, and a trace of guilt suddenly appeared in my heart. I'm sorry, Clint, it's my fault. I just wanted to go back and see my parents, brothers, and sisters. I didn't expect such a thing to happen. She couldn't help but shed tears again. Don't blame your brother, I believe he must have had his own reasons. Clint tried his best to make a nonchalant expression, twirling his hair. I am a good person with great fortune, and good people are rewarded. Didn't he die in the end? If your brother hadn't made a mistake at the last moment, I would have definitely been killed. He didn't know that at the last moment it wasn't Garin who tilted the knife, but Chayu who risked his life and tilted it. Chayu didn't say anything, so this guy imagined that Garin stopped at the last moment and spared his life. But your fingers, Bulan wiped away tears, his eyes red. Didn't Uncle Chayu say in the end that I'm definitely fine? Don't worry, this time it's not your fault. I also went back to see my sister and the others. Don't feel guilty. I'm not a sacrifice. I'm not dead yet. Clint comforted awkwardly. Did Uncle Chayu say that? Burin continued to wipe away his tears hesitantly. Yes, although I don't know why, there must be a reason for it, Clint said. Your brother is actually a good person, but he is cold on the outside, but actually he is cold on the outside and hot on the inside. Trust me, my experience in judging people is never wrong, he grinned, showing his white teeth. You really don't blame him? Well, really not. Burin hesitated and bit his lip. Then can I send him some of my things? Now that I'm like this, no one should know that there is me besides you. Clinton was helpless because the trend was changing too quickly.